The concert hall was cloaked in silence, the kind that vibrated in the chest before the first note of music. Velvet seats stretched into shadows, chandeliers shimmered faintly overhead, and the orchestra tuned with nervous bursts of strings and brass. But in the very front row sat a girl who did not look up at the stage. Her head tilted slightly, listening, not seeing. Her name was Lena Hallström, 16, blind since birth. Daughter of one of the most powerful CEOs in the city, tonight she sat alone. The seat beside her bore a small golden plaque, reserved, yet it remained empty. Audience members leaned in, whispering, "That's the Hallström girl." "Where's her father? Why would he let her sit alone?" Lena shifted uncomfortably. Her fingers brushed the edges of her dress, delicate and ivory white, as if feeling for an anchor, though her expression remained composed, her lips pressed together in quiet defiance. She was used to this. The whispers, the pity, the loneliness of being the only one in a crowded room who could not see the stairs. The orchestra quieted, the conductor raised his baton, and still, the seat beside Lena sat empty. Then, a voice, deep but soft. Lena's head turned slightly, startled. "Middle C, that's where it begins." Her lips parted. She knew the piece by heart, but no one had ever dared to whisper the first note to her. The sound warmed her like a hand on her shoulder. You know it?" Beethoven. Piano Concerto No. 5, The Emperor. My mother used to play it. The orchestra struck the opening chord, grand and sweeping. Lena's smile grew. She turned her face toward him, though her eyes saw nothing. "Most people stay quiet when I sit. Here, they don't talk to me. They don't even breathe. Then most people don't know music the way you do." The music swelled, filling the room. Lena's posture relaxed. Her chin lifted slightly as if she could see the sound. For the first time that night, she didn't feel alone. But this moment, this single note whispered into the dark, would not remain a small kindness between strangers. Because the man sitting beside her carried secrets. And the girl he spoke to, she was tied to them more than either could imagine. The camera of imagination pans closer to Ethan's face. 32, worn by sleepless nights. A second-hand suit jacket pulled too tightly at the shoulders. The look of a man used to blending into the background. A janitor's badge still tucked in his pocket from the day shift. "You don't belong here, do you?" Ethan chuckled under his breath. "No, not really." "Neither do I. Funny, isn't it? Both of us sitting in the best seats in the house, yet both of us invisible." The orchestra thundered, drowning out her words for a moment. Ethan looked at her. Really, looked at her. She was fragile, yes, but there was something else, strength, a hidden steel beneath the silk. He didn't know her name yet. Didn't know the bloodline she carried. Didn't know her father was the man who owned the building he scrubbed floors in every night. All he knew was that she was blind and alone. The music softened. A violin solo cut through the hall like a thin thread of glass. Lena leaned forward, listening with her whole body. Ethan closed his eyes, whispering again, "G, A, B flat." They climb, then fall. Lena gasped quietly, delighted. "You hear it the way I do, like a story being told." "Yeah, a story. Some stories you don't choose. They choose you." The orchestra thundered into the next movement. The audience leaned forward, captivated. But down in the front row, the true performance was unfolding silently. Two strangers, bound by music, unaware of the storm about to break over their lives. What neither of them knew was that this single note, a whisper in the dark, would unravel a conspiracy stretching from corporate boardrooms to hidden labs beneath the city. The screen fades to black. The concerto echoes on. Sipahi applause from the concert still echoed faintly in Ethan's ears as he pushed his mop bucket down the fluorescent-lit hallways of Hallstrom Biotech. The shift was late, the corridors deserted, the hum of the ventilation system louder than his own footsteps. His uniform smelled faintly of bleach, and his badge, maintenance staff, dangled from his pocket. He had no business being in that concert hall. And now back in this building, back in the shadows, he remembered why. He wasn't a guest in that world. He was a janitor, invisible, and yet he carried secrets no one could imagine. Ethan paused, leaning against his mop handle, staring at the polished Hallstrom logo etched into the glass wall across from him. A silver helix twisting upward, the company slogan beneath it. Innovation for humanity. He muttered under his breath. Humanity, sure, if you can pay for it. He pushed onward, swiping his badge at a side door that should have led to a quiet storage room. But voices leaked through. Low, urgent, not meant for him. He froze. Trial 47. They're calling it a failure. Too many losses. Losses, don't dress it up. We're talking about deaths, children, some of them. Keep your voice down. Do you want security on us? The board won't stop. The government contracts are already signed. Ethan's stomach tightened. Trial 47. The number burned into his mind. That was the trial Maria had been placed on. He stepped back into the shadows, gripping his mop handle like it was a weapon. His daughter's hope, her fragile, desperate treatment, was part of this. Deaths, covered up, buried beneath polished marble and corporate slogans. The executives' footsteps retreated, their conversations swallowed by the hum of machinery. Ethan let out a shaky breath, every muscle taut with fury and fear. Later that night, Ethan pushed open the door to a small, cramped apartment on the east side of the city. Faded wallpaper curled at the edges. A piano sat in the corner, its keys yellow, some chipped. From the bedroom came a weak but cheerful voice. "Daddy, you're late again." Ethan smiled faintly, though his heart ached. He walked in, setting down his jacket. "I stopped by somewhere special. A concert hall." "Concert? Did they play piano?" He nodded, kneeling by her bedside. Maria was small, frail for her 8 years. Tubes ran from her arm to a small humming machine beside her bed. But her eyes, they burned with life. They played Beethoven. "And I thought of you the whole time." She squeezed his hand. "Do you think when I get better, I'll play again? Like before?" Her gaze flicked toward the old piano in the living room, gathering dust. Ethan swallowed hard. "You will. I promise, one day you'll sit at that piano again and play louder than anyone else." He promised her the world, because that's what fathers do. But inside, his stomach churned with the words he had overheard. Unexpected deaths. Trial 47. Maria yawned, drifting back into the safety of dreams. Ethan pulled the blanket up to her chin and sat quietly at her bedside, his face hidden in shadow. His phone buzzed. A message notification. He frowned, opening it. Just one line from an unknown number. "Stop asking questions about Trial 47. He froze, glancing toward Maria's sleeping form. Then to the cracked window, curtains fluttering faintly. Was someone watching? Ethan thought he was invisible. Just a janitor, a father trying to keep his daughter alive. But tonight, someone reminded him, even the invisible leave footprints. He switched off the phone, his jaw tight. Ethan whispered under his breath, "If they think I'm not going to fight, they don't know me at all." The hum of the city filled the silence. Sirens wailing in the distance, the creak of pipes in the walls. And in that small apartment between a father and his fragile daughter, a storm was about to break. The next morning, Hallstrom Biotech headquarters gleamed under the sun like a fortress of glass. Inside, a press conference buzzed with cameras and reporters. At the podium stood Alexander Hallstrom, tall, commanding, immaculately dressed. His silver hair gleamed, his smile confident, his voice smooth as velvet. At Hallström Biotech, every life matters. Every innovation is driven by one mission: to heal, to cure, to change the future of humanity itself. The reporters applauded. Flashbulbs lit his perfect smile. But in the back of the crowd, Ethan watched silently as he mopped the polished floors. His eyes never left the man on the podium. Alexander Hallström, visionary, CEO, father, a man the world believed was saving lives. And yet, in whispered hallways, his name was tied to numbers, to trials, to children who never came home. As the cameras clicked, Ethan's phone buzzed again in his pocket. Another message, just 2 words this time: walk away. He clenched the phone, glancing at Alexander on stage. His jaw hardened. Not a chance. The applause roared. Cameras flashed. But in the shadows, one man with a mop had just crossed a line he couldn't uncross. The rain fell steady outside the concert hall, pooling on the sidewalks and streaking the glass doors with silver lines. Ethan pulled his jacket tighter around himself, heading toward the staff entrance at Hallström Biotech. His mop bucket rattled. Behind him, squeaking wheels echoing in the empty lobby. But before he could swipe his badge, a voice called softly from the shadows of the building's front steps. Ethan stopped. He turned. There she was, Lena Hallström, umbrella tilted awkwardly above her head, pale hair damp at the edges, her white cane tapping the pavement. "Lena, what are you doing out here?" She smiled faintly, though she couldn't see his expression. "Lena, I recognized your voice. I waited." "Ethan, you shouldn't. It's late. Where's your driver?" Her face tightened. "I sneak out sometimes. My father thinks locking me in makes me safe. But I'd rather feel rain than walls." Ethan hesitated, torn. She was the CEO's daughter, the last person he should be seen with. But there was something in her tone, the same loneliness he carried in his own chest. "You shouldn't trust strangers. You whispered Beethoven to me. That's not something a stranger does." She tapped her cane toward him. "Teach me. Music, piano, please. I can hear it, but I want to play it. Father says it's a waste of time, but if you help me." Ethan's chest tightened. He thought of Maria, weak in bed, asking if she'd ever play again. He thought of bills piling high, experimental treatments not covered by insurance. Extra money could buy more time. "All right, lessons, but no one can know. Not your father, not anyone." Lena's smile bloomed radiant. "Lena, then it's a secret." The following week, the first lesson began in the dusty corner of Ethan's apartment at the old piano Maria once loved. Maria watched from the couch, eyes wide, smiling faintly as Lena sat beside her father. "She's better already. At least, she can reach the keys without sneezing on them." Lena laughed, her hands trembling over the keys. "Maybe you'll play with me one day, a duet." Ethan's heart ached at the thought, but he forced a smile. "All right. Fingers here. Feel the shape. Let your ear guide you." Their voices blended with the hesitant notes, music weaving through the cracks of the shabby apartment like fragile light. And as the lessons continued over days, then weeks, Lena began to talk. "My father has a private chamber in the west wing of the tower. I'm not supposed to know, but I've heard whispers, people disappearing, files hidden. He says it's business, but what kind of business makes people vanish?" Ethan's jaw tightened. "You shouldn't listen to gossip. Gossip doesn't leave bruises on the staff who quit without notice." Ethan didn't reply, but her words festered in his mind like rot spreading beneath the floorboards. At Hallström Biotech, the nights grew darker. Ethan moved quietly through the research floors, mop handle in one hand, trash bag in the other. But his eyes searched for something else now. One evening in the shredder room, he found them, bags of torn documents spilling onto the floor. Half-legible phrases jumped out: Trial 47, neurological mapping, unexpected casualties. He shoved handfuls into his cart, heart hammering. From the corner, a cold voice cut through the silence. "Cleaning up more than floors tonight, janitor?" Ethan froze. Standing in the doorway was a tall, broad-shouldered man in a black suit. His jaw, sharp as granite, eyes flat and unblinking. Victor Crane, head of security, ex-military, known in whispers as the man who made problems disappear. Ethan forced a smile, holding up the bag. "Ethan, just trash. Company pays me to keep things tidy, right?" Victor stepped closer, eyes narrowing. "And sometimes tidy means knowing when not to look too closely. You understand?" Ethan nodded quickly, but his hand had already slipped a small USB drive from the bin into his pocket. He played the fool because fools are invisible, but inside his pocket the truth hummed, a drive that could shatter everything. Victor lingered, studying him like a predator measuring prey, before finally walking away. The next evening, Ethan delivered Lena back to the Hallstrom mansion after a lesson. The estate loomed like a fortress, floodlights sweeping across iron gates. Waiting at the door was Clara Hallstrom, Alexander's younger sister. She was dressed in silk, perfume trailing, but her eyes held something harder. "Lena, where have you been?" "With a friend, learning music." Clara's gaze snapped to Ethan. "And you are?" "Just her teacher. Temporary arrangement." Clara's lips curved in a smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. "My brother doesn't like strangers around Lena. He believes she needs protection. But I know better. She needs truth." Lena frowned, confused. Clara leaned closer to Ethan, her voice a whisper meant only for him. "Be careful in this house, Mr. Janitor. Not all cages have bars." She straightened, her mask of elegance snapping back into place. "Come inside, darling. Father's waiting." Lena's hand squeezed Ethan's before she vanished inside the mansion. Ethan stood alone in the cold night air, Clara's warning echoing in his ears. Back in his apartment, Ethan locked the door, sat at the old desk, and slid the USB drive into his battered laptop. The screen flickered, encrypted files filling the display. Lines of data scrolled, patient numbers, coded results, medical jargon he barely understood. One phrase repeated across multiple files. "Cognitive reassignment, phase 3. His hand trembled as he reached for the power button. He had no idea what it meant. But one thing was certain: his daughter's life, Lena's whispers, the company's polished lies. They were threads of the same web, and tonight he'd taken the first step into its center. The lights outside. His window flickered once, then again. Ethan froze. A shadow moved across the street. Someone was watching. The USB drive blinked faintly on Ethan's desk, as if alive. His laptop hummed, locked behind walls of encryption. He rubbed his temples, frustration mounting. From the next apartment over came the familiar sound of rapid typing. Mechanical keyboard clacks rattling like gunfire. Ethan exhaled, stood and knocked. The door swung open to reveal Ravi Mehta, 28. Gamer headphones around his neck, energy drink cans littering his desk, conspiracy posters plastered across the walls, government satellites, biotech scandals, coded maps. His wiry frame leaned forward, sharp eyes behind smudged glasses. "Well, well, the janitor arrives. What brings you to the Temple of Truth? Flat Earth, alien lizards, or my personal favorite, corporate bioterrorism?" Ethan held up the USB. "Drive. Need this opened." Ravi blinked, then his grin faltered at Ethan's expression. "You're not joking." He waved Ethan in. Minutes later, Ethan sat hunched beside him as lines of code scrolled across Ravi's triple monitors. This isn't amateur stuff. Military-grade encryption, which means either you stole this from the Pentagon or Hallstrom. Biotech, and considering where you mop floors. Ethan's silence was answer enough. The screens flickered. Slowly, folders bloomed open. Trial 47, neural indexing, phase 3. Inside were spreadsheets of patient data, MRI scans, and cold clinical notes. Neurological mapping, blindness reversal trials. They're experimenting with cortical, rewiring, reassigning sensory pathways. This is... Wait, he scrolled, then froze. Patient ID L07, Lena Hallstrom. Ethan's breath caught. The CEO's daughter, blind since birth, a subject in her father's experiments. Ethan pushed back from the desk, pacing. Does she know? She asked me to teach her music. She trusts me. If I tell her, she'll either break or she'll become your biggest ally. But if Hallstrom learns you snooped, you'll vanish before sunrise. The weight of it pressed into Ethan's chest. Tell her and risk shattering her world. Stay silent and live with the lie. The decision gnawed at him as he spent hours by Maria's hospital bed. Her small hands lay limp against the white sheets, skin pale, breaths shallow. Machines beeped steady but weak, like a fading metronome. New doctor entered quietly. Dr. Elise Park, 40s. Her lab coat crisp, dark hair tied back neatly, but her eyes carried exhaustion and a trace of sadness. She glanced at Maria's chart, then at Ethan. You're Maria's father? Yes. She pulled up a chair. She's been on the Hallstrom treatment protocol for 6 months, correct? Ethan nodded. I helped design some of those protocols. They aren't what they seem. Ethan's head lifted, eyes narrowing. The company, it promises results, but they push patients into trials before they're ready. Some outcomes are hidden. I can't tell you everything. Not yet. Just don't trust them blindly. Not with your daughter's life. Ethan's stomach twisted. He wanted to demand answers, but her eyes flicked toward the camera in the corner of the hospital room. Not here, not now. And then she was gone, as if she'd never been. That night, Ethan made his choice. If Lena's father could experiment on children, even his own daughter, Ethan needed proof. Proof strong enough to burn Hallstrom to the ground. And so, past midnight, he returned to Hallstrom Biotech. His janitor's keys jingled faintly in his pocket as he slipped through the service entrance. The building loomed silent, corridors lit by sterile white light. Cameras watched from every corner, red dots glowing like eyes. Ethan's breath came shallow, sweat slicking his palms. He moved quickly, cart rattling as cover, unlocking doors no cleaner should enter. At the end of a long corridor, he found it. Restricted Lab 3. The key clicked, the lock released, and Ethan slipped inside. The air was cold, too cold. Rows of observation rooms lined the walls, their windows tinted. He crept closer, heart hammering, and peered inside. What he saw froze. Him in place, children. Small bodies, hooked to IVs, lying motionless on beds, electrodes pressed against their skulls. Machines hummed quietly, mapping their brain activity. Some stirred faintly, sedated. Others didn't move at all. They weren't patients. They were subjects, experiments with names stripped away, reduced to data points. Ethan's hands shook, his gut screamed to throw open the doors, to pull them out, but alarms would blare and none of them would make it to daylight. He snapped photos, quickly with his phone, every second a risk, then a whir. The security cameras above swiveled, one, then another. Red lights trained on him. Ethan dropped behind a counter, chest pounding. He crawled toward the exit, every movement agonizingly slow. The loudspeaker crackled. Whoever's in the lab, you have 30 seconds before I arrive. Ethan's heart seized. He sprinted, bursting through the door, wheels of his janitor cart squealing, footsteps thundered behind him. The cameras followed. Down one hall, then another, keys fumbling, doors slamming shut behind him. At last, the service elevator opened. He shoved the cart inside and slammed the button. The doors closed just as Victor's silhouette rounded. The corner, eyes sharp, mouth a grim line. For a long, suffocating moment, Ethan stared at the elevator floor, chest heaving. He'd seen too much, and Hallstrom's shadows had seen him. Later that night, back in his apartment, Ethan locked every window, every door. Ravi sat cross-legged on the floor, scanning the photos Ethan had taken. His humor was gone, replaced by a pale, sober silence. They're experimenting on kids. Jesus, Ethan, this isn't a scandal, it's a war crime. Ethan leaned against the wall, hands buried in his face. Maria's fragile voice echoed in his memory. Will I ever play? Piano again, Dad. He looked at Ravi, then at the encrypted files, then back at the blurry photos of sedated children. Ethan, resolved, quiet but firm. Then we bring them down, whatever it takes. Ethan avoided Lena for days. Their secret lessons paused. His excuses clumsy, his nerves frayed. Every time he looked at her, he saw the files, patient L07, and the sedated children lying behind glass. But Lena was perceptive, too perceptive. She cornered him one afternoon in the empty auditorium where he tuned the piano. You're hiding something. Every time I ask a question, you flinch. Every time we play, you drift away. Tell me the truth, Ethan. What aren't you saying? Ethan froze, tools heavy in his hands. He wanted to protect her, but the silence between them was a crueler betrayal. At last, he sat beside her on the piano bench. The company, your father's company. They're not just testing treatments, they're experimenting on children. Kids like Maria. Nina's breath caught. Her blind eyes widened, searching his face as though she could see him. No, that's not true. My father, he's strict, but he's not. Ethan's hand trembled as he pulled up a photo on his phone, a child in a hospital gown, electrodes pressed to their skull. Lena pressed a hand to her mouth. Her world tilted. I didn't want you to know, but you deserve the truth. For a long moment, Lena said nothing. Then her jaw set and her voice hardened. Then I'll help you, whatever it takes. If my father is doing this, I won't stay blind to it. That evening, Ethan was summoned unexpectedly to a lavish corporate gala hosted in the Hallstrom Tower's glass atrium. Executives, investors, and government officials mingled beneath crystal chandeliers. Ethan, dressed in his janitor's uniform, blended into the background, yet he felt every eye on him as he cleared a tray of champagne glasses. Clara Hallstrom, 40s, intercepted him. Glamorous, poised with a calculating smile, she slipped beside him like a ghost. Don't look at me, just listen. Ethan stiffened. My brother isn't just running trials. Governments are funding him. Defense contracts, intelligence agencies. This goes deeper than you imagine. She slid something into his pocket. Ethan's fingers brushed cold plastic, a keycard. Use it, but be careful. If Victor catches you, there won't be a body left to bury. Ethan turned to question her, but she was already gone, swallowed into the crowd of glittering guests. Back at the apartment, Ravi nearly dropped his drink when Ethan showed him the card. Congratulations, janitor. You just got an all-access pass to hell. The grin faded when Ethan outlined Clara's warning. If governments are in on this, then Hallstrom isn't just curing blindness, they're weaponizing brains. That night, under the cloak of rain, Ethan and Ravi entered Hallstrom headquarters again. The keycard opened doors deeper than Ethan had ever reached, downward into sub-basements that weren't on any building map. Concrete corridors stretched cold and endless. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. The air smelled of antiseptic and rust. Finally, they reached a blast door. The keycard beeped green. It opened with a mechanical groan. Inside was an underground lab, vast, sterile, humming with power. Banks of servers glowed, monitors streaming encrypted files. In the center, a reinforced observation chamber. Ravi pulled up a terminal, fingers flying. Encrypted video files, he muttered. Give me a sec. Static flickered, then grainy. Footage appeared, soldiers strapped to chairs, needles sliding into veins, syringes filled with a glowing serum. The screens showed them convulsing, screaming, then still. When they rose, their eyes burned with an unnatural light. One punched through a steel table, another barked orders in a monotone voice. Movements, jerky but precise. They're not healing, they're building new weapons, neural enhancement, human machines. Ethan felt the blood drain from his face. Then came a voice, smooth, cold. I wondered when the janitor would crawl too deep. Ethan, spoon. Victor stood at the far end of the lab, pistol drawn, eyes like stone. Behind him, 2 guards advanced. You've seen things you shouldn't, which means you don't walk out of here. Ravi yanked the hard drive from the terminal, shoving it into Ethan's hands. Run! Ethan bolted, alarms shrieked, red lights pulsed. Doors slammed shut one by one as Victor gave chase. Ethan darted through maintenance corridors, down ladders slick with condensation. His lungs burned, boots thundered behind him. He reached a rusted hatch, forced it open. The stench hit him, sewage. Tunnels, dark and dripping. He plunged inside, sloshing through ankle-deep water, echoes of pursuit close behind. The hard drive clutched to his chest felt heavier than stone. Victor's voice carried through the tunnels, cold and taunting. You can't hide forever. Rats always drown. But Ethan kept moving, guided by memory of old schematics Ravi had once shown him. A storm grate, a path to the river. At last he clawed his way up and out into the night air, rain soaking his skin, chest heaving. The hard drive was still in his grip. Proof, evidence, the spark of something bigger. Later, in a dim diner across town, Ethan sat hunched in a booth opposite Ravi. Their clothes were soaked, faces pale. A man slid into the booth beside them, Detective Marcus Rivers, 50s. Trench coat, tired eyes, years of cynicism carved into his face. He placed a badge on the table. You boys have been playing in dangerous places. Care to explain why I just got a tip about bodies under Hallstrom Biotech? Ethan hesitated, then set the hard drive on the table. Because they're experimenting on children, and now on soldiers. Rivers studied him, jaw tight. Big claims, dangerous claims. You sure you want to drag me into this mess? Before Ethan could reply, the TV above the counter flickered with breaking news. Senator Grant Wallace stood at a podium, cameras flashing. Hallstrom Biotech is leading the way into a new era of medicine. Their breakthroughs will heal millions. I stand proudly with them. Ethan's stomach turned, Rivers' eyes narrowed. In public, Wallace preached hope. In secret, he signed the contracts that fueled Alexander Hallstrom's empire. Ethan clenched his fists. Maria's frail face flashed in his mind. The children behind glass. Lena's broken voice. He looked at Rivers, then at Ravi, then at the screen. This isn't just about Hallstrom anymore. It's about everyone they own. Rain lashed against the city as Ethan raced down the corridor of St. Mary's Hospital. Maria's condition had worsened overnight. Machines beeped warnings. Nurses whispered grim predictions. He sat by her bed, clutching her tiny hand, whispering promises he wasn't sure he could keep. Then his phone buzzed. A message. No sender. Just one line. We have her. A photo followed. Lena, blindfolded, wrists bound, terror in her face. Ethan's blood turned to ice. The kidnapping hours earlier, Lena had stumbled upon a truth never meant for her ears. She'd been walking through her father's study, guided by memory, when she heard voices beyond the door. The trials are failing. Half the subjects are brain dead. If Wallace pulls funding, then bury it. No leaks, no survivors. Do you understand? Lena froze, heart hammering. A floorboard creaked beneath her. Silence. Then the door swung open. Victor Crane filled the frame, his shadow blotting out the light. Back at the hospital, Ethan's first instinct was panic. His second was rage. He stormed into the parking lot, dialing Ravi. Ethan, hoarse, urgent. They have Lena. It's Hallstrom. I'm going after her. Ravi cursed on the other end. Ravi. Ethan, that's suicide. The building's locked down since we broke in. But hold on, I can loop their cameras if you get inside. And I've been working on a dead man's switch. If I upload what we found, it goes straight to every news outlet. Before Ethan could respond, another call came through. Unknown number, he answered. Elise Park's voice, soft but steady. Don't hang up, I know where they're keeping her. And Ethan, this time you don't go in alone. Into the heart of Hallstrom midnight. The biotech tower loomed like a black monolith against the storm. Ethan wore his janitor's uniform, once a disguise, now armor. Elise met him in the shadows of the service entrance, trench coat dripping, eyes haunted but resolute. Why help me? Because I've been leaking files for months. Anonymous blogs, whistleblower drops. Ravi wasn't the only one. I stayed too long pretending I could change things from the inside. But Lena's kidnapping, that's the line. They slipped inside. The storm muffled the city. The hum of generators filled the silence. Elise guided him through staff corridors, past biometric locks, overridden with Clara's stolen keycard. Every step felt like a countdown. Underground chamber. The chamber was deeper than Ethan had ever gone. Sterile white walls, observation windows tinted black, a surgical table in the center, and on it, Lena. Bound, trembling, blindfold torn away, Alexander Hallstrom stood beside her, immaculate in his suit, mask of control cracking only at the edges. You forced my hand, Ethan. My daughter should never have been dragged into this. But since she insists on defiance, she'll serve as proof the serum works or she dies. Lena's lips quivered, but her chin lifted. I'm not your experiment. Ethan surged forward, but Victor stepped between them, pistol gleaming. End of the line, janitor! The fight Victor moved like a machine, every punch brutal, every kick precise. Ethan was thrown across metal grating, ribs screaming. But Victor underestimated the one thing Ethan knew better than anyone, the building's guts. He scrambled into a maintenance hatch, vanishing into the shaft. Victor cursed, following, gun clattering against the narrow walls. The fight became a chase through Hallstrom's underbelly. Steam pipes, hissing valves, slick ladders. Ethan used the environment, swinging a wrench into Victor's arm, blasting steam from a ruptured pipe into his face. At last, in a narrow catwalk above the chamber, Victor lunged. They grappled viciously, fists echoing in the metal cavern. Ethan's knuckles split, Victor's blows rattled his skull. Finally, Ethan spotted it, the weak support bracket he'd tightened 100 times during his janitor shifts. With one desperate heave, he yanked it loose. The catwalk buckled. Victor stumbled. Ethan shoved him hard. Victor plummeted into the chamber below, landing with a sickening crash. His body lay twisted, unmoving. Silence. Then Lena's voice, trembling but fierce. Lena. Ethan! Father and daughter Ethan rushed down, freeing Lena from her restraints. Alexander backed away, shaken but still proud. You don't understand. Without these trials, millions will suffer blindness, paralysis, decay. This is sacrifice for progress. No, Father, this is cruelty. You used me, you lied to me. You built an empire on stolen children. Her words struck harder than any blow. Alexander faltered, his mask fracturing. You taught me to fight, to never surrender. I'm fighting now against you. The broadcast, suddenly, the chamber's screens flickered to life. Ravi's face appeared, pale in the glow of his apartment monitor. Hope you don't mind, Alex. Your secrets are trending. Encrypted files streamed live, photos of sedated children, videos of soldier experiments, financial contracts signed by Wallace. Clara's suppressed testimony. On every major network, every social feed, the truth exploded. Clara returns. From the shadows of the chamber, a figure staggered forward. Clara Holstrom, clothes torn, blood staining her blouse, eyes blazing. Clara, hoarse but strong. Victor tried to silence me. He failed. I'll testify. I'll bury you, brother. Alexander's face collapsed in horror. Collapse alarms screamed. Security forces rushed in, only to be met by police led by Detective Marcus Rivers, drawn by Ravi's broadcast. Chaos erupted. Ethan shielded Lena as Elise confronted Alexander, her voice ringing with conviction. This is your monster. He built his empire on children's suffering. Now the world knows. Alexander was dragged away, struggling, shouting about vision, progress, destiny. His words rang hollow, drowned by the cries of the exposed, aftermath of the showdown Ethan held. Lena close. Her shoulders shook, but her head remained high. You kept your promise. You didn't let them break me. He glanced toward the night sky through shattered glass, rain mixing with the sterile air of the lab. And I won't let them break. Maria either. Not anymore. The courtroom buzzed with cameras, whispers, and the palpable weight of scandal. Alexander Holstrom sat rigid at the defense table, stripped of his aura of untouchable power. No sleek boardroom, no army of handlers. Just a man, aging and diminished in an ill-fitting suit. Reporters shouted questions as guards escorted him. Dr. Holstrom, how do you plead? Were you working with Wallace? What about the missing children? He didn't answer. He couldn't. In the end, the prosecutors spoke of crimes against humanity. The defense muttered of noble intentions. But the truth was already carved into the world. Holstrom Biotech's empire had crumbled overnight, shareholders fleeing, contracts dissolved, allies vanishing. During one recess, Alexander requested to see Lena. She agreed, reluctantly. In the sterile visitor's room, she sat across from him, cane resting against the chair. Her eyes, milky but unflinching, faced him head-on. I began this for you. Do you remember? You were 8. You had just lost your sight. I swore I'd give you the world back. That promise, he faltered, voice breaking. That promise became an obsession. At first, every trial, every serum, it was about curing you. Then investors came, governments came. They demanded more, stronger results. And I told myself it was all still for you, until I no longer recognized what I had built. For a long silence, Lena said nothing. Then she inhaled deeply. I believe you started with love. But love twisted by greed isn't love anymore. I forgive you, Father, but I will never forget what you became. Alexander's eyes brimmed with tears. He pressed a trembling hand against the table, but she didn't reach back. When guards led him away, Lena sat perfectly still, shoulders squared. Lena's new path weeks later, she stood on a podium at a victims' rally, microphone trembling in her hand. Survivors of the trials filled the square, parents clutching. Photos, children in wheelchairs, faces forever scarred by experiments gone wrong. The crowd hushed as Lena spoke. My name is Lena Holstrom. I was once shielded by privilege, blind to the suffering my father's company caused. Now I see more clearly than ever. The children used as test subjects, the families silenced, the lives stolen. They deserve justice. And justice means more than punishment. It means reform. It means laws that protect the vulnerable. It means no corporation should ever play God again. The crowd erupted in applause, some crying openly. From the sidelines, Ethan watched. Pride swelling in his chest. She wasn't her father's heir anymore. She was her own force, scarred but unbroken. Maria's healing months passed. A new dawn followed the storm. Thanks to Ravi's exposure of the files, new government programs rushed forward, ethical treatment made available to all children once trapped in Holstrom's shadow. Maria was among the first to qualify. Ethan sat beside her hospital bed as doctors administered her new therapy. No more secrecy, no more hidden labs. This was real medicine, transparent, approved. Weeks later, in the dim light of their apartment, Maria touched the piano keys again. Her small fingers stumbled at first, uncertain. Ethan knelt beside her, guiding her hand. Here, middle C. Feel it? Now one step up. That's D. Good. Slow, steady. Maria pressed the keys. The notes wavered, then grew confident, weaving into the melody she once loved. Tears welled in Ethan's eyes. She looked up at him, smiling shyly. Maria. Daddy, it sounds like music. Again, Ethan hugged her tightly, face buried in her hair. For the first time in years, he let himself believe in tomorrow. Detective Marcus Rivers filed the last page of his report late at night in a nearly empty precinct. The Hallstrom case had consumed months, left headlines bleeding scandal across every newspaper. Alexander was awaiting trial. Senator Wallace had vanished from public life, hiding behind lawyers and closed doors. When Ethan stopped by the precinct to thank him, Rivers lit a cigarette and gave a weary half smile. Don't thank me, you did the hard part. I just signed papers. Ethan shook his head. Ethan, you believed me when no one else did. Rivers leaned back, smoke curling in the lamplight. This was only one head of the Hydra. Cut it off and two more grow back. Hallstrom may fall, Wallace may hide, but someone else out there is already building the next lab. You be ready, son. Because men like you, janitors, fathers, nobodies, you're the only ones who ever managed to stop them. Ethan nodded. Slowly, the weight of those words settling deep in his bones. Elise and Clara Elise Park testified before Congress, exposing every dark ledger she had smuggled out of Hallstrom Biotech. Her career was over, but her conscience was free. Clara, still recovering from Victor's assault, became one of the star witnesses at Alexander's trial. Her testimony shook the jury. A sister's betrayal turned into reluctant courage. Though scarred, both women walked away alive, proof that silence could be broken, even when it came at a cost. Closing scene one evening. Ethan, Maria, and Lena sat together in the small apartment. The piano notes floated gently in the air, Maria practicing with earnest concentration. Lena sat nearby, smiling softly, listening with a serenity she hadn't felt since childhood. Ethan leaned back in his chair, exhaustion finally giving way to a fragile peace. For the first time, the three of them felt like a family stitched together by pain, survival, and quiet resilience. Outside, the city bustled as if nothing had changed, but they knew better. They had struck the first blow against giants. Black screen. Piano music continues faintly. Ethan's voice narrates, sometimes it doesn't take generals or presidents to change the world. Sometimes it takes ordinary people, a janitor, a blind girl, a sick child, to strike the first note that shakes the world.